Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Intimacy, Season 1, Episodes 1 and 2. So, honestly, once I got to the second episode, I just found this show to just be, stretched out and just boring, in all honesty. I felt like the title is a clickbaiting thing that when you really go into it, I was like, okay, the title doesn't exactly describe the show all that well. Like, if the show was possibly called, Scandal or No Privacy, then I would have been like, oh, okay. Like, what is this show still about? And I'm like, okay, this might be interesting. But I feel like I'm watching Law and Order SVU, where we go on and just have really brief seconds of what everyone has to go on and just reference and talk about throughout this whole entire 2 episodes, where we consistently have guys who are mocking these women, and it's mostly men, and we don't even have like a male case of this. We just have two females, and that's what we're kind of focusing on within the season so far. And I'm like, okay, like, that would have been nice if there was actually a male case of this also, but whatever. Like, maybe that'll be what they save season 2 for. There justifyingly is going to be one. So, with that said, for this episode's, we go on, we have a girl named Anna, who is come to find out within her workplace there seems to be some photos that she might have gone and done in desperation, possibly, to be able to make money, probably at a while ago time, that all of a sudden it seems that all of her coworkers, like her entire staff of coworkers, are all finding these photos and are all going on and having a good joke about it, having a good laugh. And while this girl leaves certain offices and whatever, we have pretend like we have shadow thrusting going on. And I'm like, wow, okay. So every guy has to go on and shame this woman. Okay. We seem to have every guy that has like a poor opinion about what's going on with both Anna and eventually both Malin. I know really how I will probably pronounce these names within this review will probably not be the same as the show, because more than likely I'm trying to dance through and try to figure out how to pronounce these. And eventually when I hear them a lot more, and here's also the thing, this show has a very limited cast list. Very limited. So there's like a whole guy, that makes a lot of sense. There's a guy in episode 1 where Malin is talking to, and I'm not going to remember the name of that character, and I didn't think to have to write every character name down at some point. But eventually he will go on and talk to her, and I'll be like, well, the government official, because I don't remember everyone's name. So with that said, there's that for you. So, but we also have Malin, who was to go on, and she is to be a mayor, a political figure that is to go on and have a scandalous tape being presented out there, and it's possibly affecting her career. And so, like, that's what the focus is to really be on. That eventually we have Malin and we have Anna, who had gone through these troubled times, and eventually will find out their story and their struggle, and them eventually going on and just saying, like, well, hey, like, so what? I had, like, consensual passion, let's just say, because I like to skirt around certain words, with somebody, and, like, people do it all the time. And it's like, well, it's not just that. It's an affair of sorts. It's a scandal. And so, like, it's basically the whole, like, Bill Clinton thing for Americans all over again, where it's like, oh, well, a person in office or a political person who is having some lovemaking with another person that is not her husband. Scandal. Even though it seems that we have it to where Malin is to immediately tell her daughter, it's like, well, yeah, like me and your father have been going through some troubles, and so we decide to have like a much more open relationship. Uh, and so like here's where things are to go horribly awry. So yeah, so with that said, like yeah, like I just felt like this show, once we get into like the second episode, I'm like, man, I don't know if I can go on and watch 2 episodes of this. It's just very just slow. It's very slow, and there are times where I feel like there's not a lot accomplished within these episodes, or really like I'm just feeling that like I'm going into a show where I just kind of feel awkward watching it. It's a very like, yeah, like I don't like this kind of thing, because it kind of reminds me of this Charlize Theron movie called North Country, where a lot of the women were to go into this certain construction job, and eventually were to consistently get shamed by all the workers there, and kind of brings up that movie to me, where I'm just kind of like, ooh, like this is really awkward. So with that said, like I don't want to offend anybody of me talking about this show. I just saw the first 2 episodes. More than likely, I may not even go on and watch any more of this, depending on if like people are interested in it. That I think I will go on and see where episodes head. If especially if it seems that the show gets better at some point. Um, I actually did like out of all this story, I probably easily liked uh Ladea Ladea La Ladea Ladea, the girl that was Malin's daughter. The girl, of course, because like it's actually spelled um Lair, it looks like, but like the way they pronounce it is different. So like I want to try to hit it in the pronouncing way, because it sounds like lady, um, but it's Ladere, Ladere. You can go on and just say like it's pronounced this way, you goober, and I will understand that, because eventually I'll just go on and be like, well, really these names don't come up that often or often enough with even within 2 episodes, and plus also there is not the helping hand of most of their truly legitimately being a cast list upon the show. So I'm going off of stuff that was probably heard or said once. Like we have Malin's husband, who is called Alfonso, um, or like Alfredo, and yeah, Alfredo, and that's not on here. So that's freaking great. uh, as well as probably the guy of which that Malin was to talk to in the first episode, that was to kind of be also like a politician of sorts. That I think was to be called Chuma or something like that. Chuma, that might have been it. Like, but and eventually, let's just go on and hopefully go into spoilers, because I've talked far too much about this anyway. So let's go into that double 5 time territory. At the end of the day, it's about time to say that it is spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about the time again to spoil this show. So we go on and we have Anna, who is to have gone into this beach and decided to drown herself within this beach because of the betrayal that she had had. And so we go on and we showcase this woman's death at first, but then we kind of have to go backwards and like show the things leading up to that moment, which is kind of weird. So we're not only showing Anna, we're showing also Anna's sister, who is dealing with the loss of her sister, who is Anna, and that eventually Anna's sister is to go on and want to try and figure out a way to get justice for her sister. Then we also have Malin's story, and also this investigator story, who is to go on and be the uh, privacy violation crime division woman. And how it's to be shown in, of course, IMDb that it's showcased as Alicia, but I'm assuming that's not actually how it's pronounced. So there we are. Kind of like, of course, we have it where I'm assuming, let me, Bago is actually Anna's sister. You can go on and to the heavens go and say how these things are actually pronounced. Because at the end of the day, I'm gonna hopefully figure out how to eventually announce them all. Anyways, at some point, let's go on. So we have it to where we have Bago, who is to be this teacher, and she eventually is to get called, and she is to have to go on and identify her sister's body. And so then she is to turn around and have to go and tell Bago's lover that that she, of course, was to end her own life. Come to find out, we have it to where there was a co-worker of Bago of Anna's who told Bago about the pictures that were kind of siphoning around, and how I guess she was aware of it and was to come forward to Bagel and tell her what was going on. And that's how eventually Bago is to go on and be like, oh, like I never knew what was going on with Anna all along, and now that I know, I'm going to try to seek justice for this. And so Bagel ends up going to Alicia, who's this privacy privacy violation investigator, and try to get a case going. But it seems that at some point we find out, especially within the second episode, that this may be a very tough case to go on and win. But anyways, because eventually, like, I think that takes more than just like one person for that eventually to, like, you need a number of people who had that all happen to within that workplace to then go on and eventually like have because look at the movie North Country, if you want to see that kind of same kind of similar movie, but yeah, because it's a film. Anyways, you need a number of people to kind of step in and say like, yeah, my privacy was violated too, or I was to go on and be like treated like she was, so on and so forth. Anyways, let's move on. So Malin. So Malin is to go on to her job as this this mayor candidate, and so it seems that there's some election time going on, and so Mayland is to kind of be doing her date as usual, and then all of a sudden this video comes up on the news, and they of course are showcasing Mayland and some guy going at it, and like this video has gone viral. So we have it to where Mayland is to now desperately be calling her husband and calling her daughter, and like telling her daughter, hey, like don't look at your phone for the whole entire day, I'll explain everything. We have Mayland who's calling her husband and telling her husband to go on and pick up their daughter from school. So Mayland is after this whole video was to go out, like her day was to be kind of the normal politician day. And so Mayland is to go on and try to call the guy that she had slept with, and this is a guy named like Sere. Sere? It's Cesar. Sere? So it kind of sounded like Caesar, but it was like Sere. So Mayland is going on or Malayan is going on and consistently calling this guy and asking, like, well, hey, like, were you a part of this? Were you being used? Call me back. Like, why haven't you gotten back to me? So on, so forth. So we start to have this whole video starting to ripple. And so we go on and we have Alfredo, who is in this church, and he is to eventually be told by somebody at this church what is going on. And then we also have Lede, who is kind of swimming, and she of course is to be this diver, this person who keeps jumping into the pool consistently. So after her practice, she all of a sudden is to notice that there are kind of women passing around this video, I guess, to say like, hey guys, like look at this new video that's everywhere. So Lede is going on and seeing this video, and she's going on and purposely like not answering her parents' calls. She's just going on off to this club to try to speak to her boyfriend, who more and more just feels that like this boyfriend is just trying to go on Xabi, Xabi or BA Xabi Xabe is going on and just avoiding Lede, and when eventually she does bump into him in school, she's like, well, hey, like you haven't gotten my text, like what's going on? And her boyfriend's just like, oh, well, like I had to study for finals, like you know how it is, it's crazy, yeah, like I didn't have my phone on, like. And so like Lede is telling her boyfriend, it's like, well, did you see about the video though? And the boyfriend's like, well, yeah, like that's kind of bad, right? So like trying to be nice about it, but eventually you'll find within these first two episodes that slowly but surely this guy doesn't want really nothing to do with her, because like she's kind of radioactive now, especially with kind of what's going on with the scandal. I'm like, man, you would think that even more so, like whoever would be affected by this, like their significant other, especially if it wasn't directly them, but you would think that person would be like, well, hey, like I'm here for you, like whatever you need, because that would be like the right thing to do, to even step in any more and try to comfort this person. But like especially the person that's like having an affair on like the husband who had like this reveal to him that his wife is having an affair, like that would kind of be like upsetting, and to just to the point where like I would understand if that guy wasn't there for his wife, but still, who knows when these videos were actually done and so on and so forth, but still. Anyways, pushing on. So we have it where now Mayland is consistently calling this guy Cersei, and eventually she's to tell him like meet at the beach at this time. So we have it to where Mayland is all of a sudden talking to one of these political figures who I call Chama or Chama to Chama. I don't know, like, and so we have them exchanging words, and the guy's like kind of just asking kind of these questions of like, well, like was it a boyfriend? Like, is it some guy that you know? So on and so forth. Just kind of like sifting out questions, and so like as if this guy really needs to freaking know. So we have to where this guy is like, well, like Malin, like what do you think that you're gonna go on and do? Uh, like this thing is like it's gonna look really bad, and so we go on and eventually have it even further where Malin is talking to uh, Merden, who is kind of eventually guiding her, kind of telling her how things are all kind of going to break down. So we eventually, at the end of this first episode, like at first it seems that when Malin ends up talking to a lot of these other political figures within this first episode, they're all just saying that this girl should immediately just be like resigning, like give her resignation. And she's like, "Wait a minute, what? Like this was just me sleeping with some guy. Like people do it all the time." And it's like, "Well, it's not just that. It's a question of ethics." And so with that, like it's a scandal kind of thing. So when we go on and we have, of course, Malin, who is to make it to this beach, instead of her going on and getting Cesare, who shows up instead, she ends up getting a phone call from this privacy violation and crime investigator, and is to say, it's like, well, hey, can we meet today? And Malin's like, no, that's going to be impossible. Can we meet tomorrow? So eventually they meet, and so we go on, and we also have Bego, uh, who he eventually is to go on and bury her sister. It seems that they're going to cremate her and put her in this little place for her to have this kind of grave of sorts within this kind of cremation kind of thing. And so that was kind of like a nice ceremony that we end up seeing in episode 2. So we have, of course, where when Lede is to make her way home, we have, of course, where we've already had Malin that is talking to Alfredo about all of this, and that eventually, like, Malin's husband is just kind of frustrated because he's going to go on and be called like nicknames and just be like treated poorly just as well as his wife will, just because he let this happen. Just somehow, like it was out of his power to just go on and have his wife go on and be thrown in the arms of another man when really like their relationship is much more open than anyone else would think, but still. So when Lady does finally arrive at home, she is to have a bunch of paparazzi that are in her face asking her questions. And one of the paparazzis get very grabby, and I'm like, hey, like, don't mess with Lady. She's freaking awesome. So Lady goes on and is like decking this paparazzi and taking him down because she's like being grabbed by this guy. And so Malin is rushing out there trying to protect her child or protect her kid, her daughter, whatever is the most appropriate word to say here. And then we go on and we have Malin explain to Lady like what it all happened and so on and so forth to help her understand. And we kind of have it to where Alfredo is kind of ticked off at Lady because it's like, you knew about the video and you didn't say anything, and like how did your boyfriend like treat this whole situation? And so like we had like Alfredo that is wanting to just go on and like, you know what, I'm gonna go to my office and just kind of sleep in my office because like there's gonna be a paparazzi show every time I get out of this place, so I'm gonna go elsewhere. So we go on and we have this investigator that of course to go into these cases, and so she's not only working on Malin's case, but then she's also working on um, Big O slash Anna's case to eventually come up with this evidence. So, come to find out, Alicia was to go and find that one of Anna's co-workers, um, Bison, uh, I'm gonna go with Bazan. Bazan? Yeah. Um, was to have these photos in his phone, and Alicia was to go and look at them and find them, like, aha. That I guess he was to delete them at some point, but she found out about it through his deleted photos. So it's like, oh, like you had the photos in there, and so like who is the person that sent you this? And the guy was trying to be all like, I'm not going to say anything, I'm like, no, I'm not going to reveal who the source was. So we have it to where Alicia is thinking that this, like, there's a real case here, that these photos are getting out. So we kind of have this back and forth of Malin, whether or not she wants to go on and file like a report about this and get the guys who are behind all this. Like at first, like she didn't want to, but then the more and more that she's talking about it, the more she's kind of convinced that she wants to file a report and find out who are the ones who did this. Because eventually, when Malin is to decide at the end of this episode to do this press conference and is to be in this hall to give this speech, we have Malin mentioning that, like, you know what, uh, I'm not really ashamed of what's going on, but but also like I realize the severity of it, blah 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 blah. So we have it to where Malin is to not within this thing, within this within this speech. She's not saying that she is going to resign from her office. She instead is going on and going to fight this. And everybody's like, ooh, wow. Like, so we have all these other politicians that are like, hey, she didn't resign. And so Malin is going to go on and continue to fight this. And eventually, within the second episode, she's going to try to do an interview. And so to try to get like on the other end of this, to mention everybody that she was like a victim in all this and all this kind of stuff, and so We also have it in the second episode where Malin is going on and reading all the comments and all of the things about these videos. She's going on, and when she's in her car, she's blaring the radio, seeing what everybody is to be feeling about this, because yeah, like she went in a public place and she slept with somebody. Like uh it's like that's the horrifying thing of like, yeah, like this was consensual, both of them wanted it, but somebody took advantage of that. And that's the thing that kind of sucked. Um so we have Malin going into this date with a guy named Sarah, and so we have it to where Sarah is to go on and tell Malin, and this is like in a flashback. It's like, well, hey, like I bet you're dreaming about me. I bet every day you think about me all the time. You're like, yeah, I'm sure you do. And so I guess that ends up getting Malin to be so much interested in this guy to the point of them leading to this beach, and then eventually Malin regretting ever meeting this guy. Plus, in the episode 2, we find out that Sarah is to also like have a wife and kids, and I'm like, oh my god! So this guy was on a date with Malin, and he had kids. Like what a douchebag. Um, but not only that, we have his wife, who just kind of watches a video, the tape of what had gone on there, and by the end of episode 2, she realizes that her husband was with this woman, and so she uh like takes her wedding ring off, puts her wedding ring off, and spits in her own husband's face and leaves. But in episode 2, so Sarah is to go on and have eventually been working with somebody to put this tape out. I don't know who it might have been. Malin's other like campaign parties trying to go against her, trying to get her out of office. So we have it to where Cersei um, is calling these men and wanting to eventually say, it's like, well, hey, like I should be getting more money for doing this video. And they're like, well, yeah, like it seems to have exploded everywhere, and so yeah, I guess you should be getting more money. Because Cersei was to be told that only Malin was going to be seeing this video. Now it's out everywhere. It's on TV, and so even Cersei was lied to. So Cersei goes on and meets with these men, thinking that he's going to get a bigger payday than what he really did. And instead of getting a real payday, he's going to get a real beating, because he is going to get beaten to death, it seemed. So we have it to where Cersei is to not be dead, but is to be very woozy and is make his way back home, where eventually he is to like show that he's bruised. And so his wife is just kind of like, well, hey, are you okay, honey? And he's like, well, yeah, like it was just a thing uh that I got mugged, like people try to like steal my wallet and steal my credit cards, and I canceled them. It's fine. So we have Cersei that goes on and is eventually just wanting to take his kids out, and all of a sudden he passes out because he's kind of like dealing with some aftermath of that beating. And so his wife rushes him to the hospital, and so uh, that's when eventually his wife has realized this video of this affair, and so she spits on him and gives him his wedding ring, and then goes home to pack her luggage and is to want to leave. So we go on in the beginning of the second episode, and we have, of course, where Malin is to make it to Alicia's office. I want to say Alacia. Um, anyways, so we have Malin who makes it to this office to speak to this investigator, and while that is going on, we have Bego that is to bump into this girl at this vending machine. So as this girl is kind of just struggling with her hands, we come and also find out that Bego is having a struggle writing on this chalkboard. So it's like, okay, so like, is this stress? Is it like what's kind of going on with this character? And we also had one moment in the first episode where Bego, after a long day at work, was to go home and speak with her sister. And we have Anna who is going on and talking about some guy that she met, some I think bike salesman, and like eventually they're just kind of going on and just kind of talking about things to kind of comfort one another. In the previous episode, in the first episode, I just forgot about that because it didn't really have much of real consequence. I was like, what the heck is going on? But so we have it to where Bagel bumps into Mela or Malin. So Malin is going to this investigator and is telling her, it's like, well, hey, like, I want to go on and say that this decision was mine and my own, and I don't want to report anybody right now. And the inspector is like, well, like, why? Like, you are the victim here, and like, you should go on and eventually have like somebody come after this. And so Malin's like, well, I don't want you to look into anything right now. Like I just really uh like there's so much stuff going on right now. Like so like let's just kind of just say that I just don't want there really being an investigation right now at this minute. But then eventually Malin is to change her point of view and want to go on and eventually want to report these people, because eventually Bago in this episode comes to Malin, who Malin in the first episode had went to her father and asked, like, her father, it's like, well, hey, like, who's really just concentrating on his thesis and his work, and he's not really caring about his own daughter. And so Malin is asking her own father, it's like, well, should I report these guys? What should I do? And so, like, we go on and have her father just completely ignoring her, not realizing how like this video is really like affecting the public and affecting people. As eventually, when like the longer and longer this goes, like we have even Malin's father who cannot go on without hearing something about this video getting out, and how this girl is basically uh, just some tramp or something along those lines. So we also have the story of oh no, let's finish my point. So Bago is to go on and eventually talk to Mayland after Mayland is to be done with this investigator, and say like, well, hey, um like my sister had gone through the exact same thing, and she had chosen to give give up her own life. And so I want to like come here to like talk to you, Malin, um, and hope that like you and I can get the justice that we deserve. And Malin's like, well, yeah, like let's go on. So we have it to where Malin is to shift Bago into talking to Malin's father, because Bago is going through the same thing. So we have Malin's father that is going on. It's like, well, this seems like a very tough case to win, but like I know an associate that I can kind of hand you off to that can probably help you, I hope. So yeah. So now we have to show the story of Anna, because like she's also in the early parts of this episode. So Anna all of a sudden is to go on and be like working at this kind of factory, this kind of warehouse place. And that's why this kind of reminds me a lot of North Country. It's weird. So we go on into this story, and so Anna is kind of working at this factory, and all of a sudden she is to be told to come to this office, and a lot of her other female workers that she's friends with are just kind of like, well, hey, like maybe you're gonna get that promotion, maybe you're gonna get that raise, isn't that great? And so we've Anna that's like, I don't know, like I think I've also heard that they're doing some layoffs. So Anna goes on to her leader, and or her like I don't know if it's her lead, I don't know if it's her manager, I don't know what it is. Could be her GM, I don't know. So could be her human resources guy. So Anna's going on and talking to this guy, and so this guy is going on and telling Anna, it's like, well, hey, let me know soon. And so Anna's like, okay, like I'll let you know. And like also she's asking him about like, well, like I've kind of heard or I've kind of been hearing whispers that people are gonna get laid off soon, and he's like just let me know about like what you decide. And so we have Anna going and making her way through these offices to kind of turn back and see the guy that she had just talked to is doing these like weird thrusting motions, and she's like, okay, whatever that was about. And so all of a sudden, while she is kind of doing this machine, she's doing this kind of crane machine, she's all of a sudden seeing a number of men that are all doing these kind of facial expressions, just kind of looking at this girl like, yeah, look at that girl, haha, like, yeah. And she's like, what the heck is going on with all those guys? Like, what is this? And then at some point, we go on and find out that this girl is to realize that there is to be a number of these photos that are being leaked of a number of these scenarios where it's not only like pictures of this girl without bottoms, let's just say, but then it's also some video of her being with a guy in this scenario. So maybe this girl could have possibly done a number of these things in her past, not thinking it was gonna go anywhere. But then all of a sudden, somehow these guys were to stumble upon these things somehow or another, and eventually she is, I guess, being somehow shamed about it through her employees, which I guess can't mind their own effing business. Uh, so, and then Anna is to feel so horrible about it, even though she has like a support system with this guy and these kids, where she goes on and she's playing Jenga with them. But like, I guess she can't just deal with the guilt of it, the embarrassment of it, to where she goes on and does what she does. Like, that's her life. That's whatever her decision is, even though it might just be like, you could have went to someone for help. You could have went to somebody, but still. So, like, you had family, you had a guy that you're with. It seemed, unless that's her, uh, unless that's her brother with his sons. I'm not sure what that whole like breakdown was. Not quite sure yet. But anyways, so we go on into this story, and so Lady is to be wanting to go to this party with her boyfriend, and it seems that her boyfriend is just kind of being um like kind of a ghost. Like, he's not really wanting to say yay or nay about anything. And so when we finally have it to where like Lady is to go to this party, and is eventually just kind of seeing that her boyfriend like wants nothing to really do with her anymore, Lady just leaves this party, and is to go on and kiss a guy and then leave, because we have it to where all of a sudden one of her boyfriend's friends is to mention, it's like, well, hey, how about you just go home with your ho mother or whatever. And so Lady, who I guess now realized that she's on her own, is just go on and just get out of here, as this guy is to just be grabbing her butt. And she decides to just kiss this guy because it's like, well, whatever, like I'm no longer with this boyfriend anymore. So, which is really too bad, because this girl is to actually really be a character that I like probably out of everybody. Um, but anyways, so we go on and we have this girl after this party who's just to decide, because she loves the pool anyways, she sneaks in this pool and just kind of jumps in and dives into the pool and is just kind of swimming in the pool, because we go on and we have it to where Lady is to be comforted in the pool instead of going off and doing anything else in her life. So we'll kind of see where that ends, or where that goes with this character. But anyways, so with that said, I feel like most of these 2 episodes are covered, but then again, I also feel like not enough is covered. Because we also have Mayland, who is to go to this interview, and if she hadn't gone on and talked to um, uh, Maiden enough, or Maidane, enough, the girl who was to have talked to her before, we now have them kind of, before the interview starts, they're kind of talking about things, talking things over, and like talking about her political run and this and that. So she ends up leaving, and then they do the interview. So we have Alfredo that is also asking his own wife, it's like, do you really think an interview is like a good decision to do right now? Like, really, it's just going to give like more fuel to the fire. But Mayland is just like, no, like I think I need to get ahead of this, instead of going on and just kind of just avoiding it. So we eventually go on and have Maiden, who is to just kind of go on with Mayland in to kind of go and face these politicians, and like, well, hey, like we're gonna try to turn this around. We're gonna figure out a strategy and so on and so forth. So eventually, we also have Cersei's wife, who calls this number thinking that it's probably a woman that Cersei had cheated with, and instead it's some other guy, it's some angry, upset guy. Um, and I was like, okay, like, are they gonna be able to like trace this phone number possibly at some point? Wouldn't that be nice? Um, but also in this second episode, after this investigator is to try and start getting these pieces together to help this investigation, she goes home, and she, of course, is to be comforted by her wife that is to be pregnant with child, I guess. So, and that it seems that the inspector is to just say, it's like, well, yeah, I'm having a great day, like it's fine, it's okay. to And so we had this inspector kind of just looking out this window, and we have it to where Anna's voice comes over and is like, well, yeah, like this inspector is to be the only one that really knows what had gone on with Anna, because no one else really does. And we also have the inspector that is to show Bego like this video, to ask her, it's like, well, hey, do any of these faces look familiar to you? When eventually there is a video of Anna who um, had been with a guy, and I believe possibly a girl in this video, because there's not only the photo shoot, but then there's also that other video. Um, so yeah, and Bago's like, nope, never seen these people before. But yeah, but again, like, I'm hoping we're gonna see the backstory of all that stuff, like leading up to that moment, because we technically had the date, like the lead up to that, like I'm assuming that there's probably going to be some lead up to the whole like video photo shoot. Maybe this girl was drugged the whole time. I don't know. Or maybe she was under the influence, or just young and just needed the money. Because that could have happened also. Maybe she was laid off from a job. That could usually be thing leading to that kind of moment. So, with that said, like at the end of this review, like I feel bad for these women. Like mistakes can happen. Like you're always to just realize, like, yeah, like people people just kind of rush into things, or really are to just to go on and just think like, well, um, like in the moment, like you're thinking that uh like you're like safe or protected with this person, um or that eventually like this will lead to something, and then you probably realize later how um possibly really dumb that was for that second. But um especially when you aren't really sure exactly if something is going to really lead somewhere. um but anyways, that said, I think I'm just going to get out of here. Let me know in the comments below if there's something that I forgot about, because I'm sure there's a billion things that I did. But other than that, I think I feel fine about this review, because at the end of the day, people may be interested, people may not at all be interested. At the end of the day, I just talked about the show, and maybe eventually at some point I may talk about it more if it seems that people are interested. So goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.